There comes a moment in life when the way we have been living no longer makes sense. The patterns we repeat, the identities we cling to, the fears we allow to shape our days, it all becomes unbearable. And in that moment, something shifts. The awakening begins. Transformation does not happen through effort alone. It is not another goal to be achieved, not another thing to fix about yourself. It is deeper than that. It is a dissolving, a shedding, a return to something that has always been there but was buried beneath layers of conditioning, pain, and illusion. Imagine a man who spent his whole life chasing success, believing that wealth and recognition would finally give him peace. He worked endlessly, sacrificed sleep, relationships, even his health, and then, one day, standing in front of everything he built, he felt nothing, no fulfillment, no joy, just an emptiness staring back at him. That moment broke him. But it was in that breaking that he saw the truth. What he had been searching for was never outside. It was always within. Real transformation is not about becoming someone new. It is about remembering who you truly are beneath the noise of the mind. The mind will tell you that you need more achievements, more approval, more control. But what if you dared to let go? What if instead of chasing, you stopped and became still? A woman once lost everything. Her business collapsed, her relationships fell apart, her identity as a successful person shattered overnight. She was drowning in the fear of the unknown, but instead of resisting, she surrendered. She sat with the pain, with the fear, with the silence, and in that silence she found something unexpected. Not the peace that comes from having everything figured out, but the peace that comes from no longer needing to, from trusting life itself. There is something within you right now that has never been broken, never been afraid, never been lost. It has watched every struggle, every victory, every failure without judgment. It is the stillness behind the storm, the awareness behind the thoughts. That is who you are. Most people live as prisoners of their own minds, trapped in the past or anxious about the future. But the only real transformation happens when you awaken to this moment, when you stop running, when you realize that the peace you seek has never been anywhere but here. It is not about adding more to yourself. It is about stripping away everything false. You are not your fears. You are not your past. You are something far greater, far deeper, far more powerful. And the moment you stop searching outside, you will see you already are everything you have been looking for. There comes a point in life when something inside you whispers, or perhaps screams, that the way you have been living is no longer enough. The routines, the identities, the external pursuits that once seemed so important now feel hollow. You may not even know what needs to change, but you feel it in your bones. Something is off. This is the first spark of transformation. Not a dramatic external shift, not an overnight revelation, but a quiet recognition that your current reality is no longer aligned with something deeper within you. Most people spend their entire lives sleepwalking, lost in patterns that were never truly their own. They inherit beliefs from society, from their families, from past experiences, and without questioning, they build their entire existence around these borrowed ideas. But awareness is the moment you step outside this unconscious repetition and begin to see. You start to notice the voice in your head that constantly judges, compares, and worries. You see how you react to life rather than consciously respond. You recognize that much of what you call yourself is simply conditioning, layers upon layers of accumulated thought. This moment of realization is both unsettling and liberating. Unsettling because it shatters the illusion of certainty you once held about who you are. Liberating because it cracks open the possibility of something greater. When you become aware of the patterns running your life, they lose their power over you. The moment you observe your fear, your self-doubt, your endless seeking for validation, you are no longer fully identified with it. You begin to see that there is something beyond your thoughts, an awareness that is untouched by them. Imagine a person who has spent years chasing achievement, believing that success will finally bring them fulfillment. They push harder, accomplish more, yet the emptiness remains. Then, one day, they pause. They step back from the relentless pursuit and ask, why? Why is it never enough? Why does happiness always feel just out of reach? This question, simple yet profound, is the beginning of awakening. It is the shift from unconscious living to conscious awareness. This awareness alone changes everything. Without it, you are a puppet of your past, of your conditioning, of unconscious habits. With it, you reclaim your power. You no longer react blindly, you begin to choose. You see that your fears are not absolute truths, but conditioned responses. You realize that your identity is not fixed, but fluid. You recognize that the stories you tell yourself about who you are can be rewritten. And so transformation does not begin with force. It does not start with trying to change yourself. It starts with seeing yourself clearly, without judgment, seeing your life for what it is, not what you wish it to be, seeing the truth beneath the surface. And once you see, you can never unsee. From that moment on, the journey has already begun. From an early age, people are conditioned to believe that their worth is tied to external validation, success, recognition, approval. These become the markers of a good life. A child is praised for getting good grades, an employee is rewarded for working harder than everyone else, a person is admired for their status, wealth, or attractiveness. Slowly, without realizing it, they begin to build their identity around these external measures. Their sense of self becomes dependent on how others perceive them, and so they chase achievements, social acceptance, admiration, thinking that once they reach a certain level, they will finally feel whole, finally feel at peace. But what happens when they achieve it all and still feel empty? A man who has spent years climbing the corporate ladder, sacrificing his time, his relationships, and his well-being for success, finally reaches the top. He earns the money, the respect, the power, and yet he feels a void inside him. A woman who has spent her entire life seeking love and validation from others, bending and reshaping herself to be accepted, finds herself in a perfect relationship only to realize she still feels unworthy. The emptiness lingers because no amount of external validation can fill an internal void. The problem is not the pursuit itself, but the illusion that something outside of oneself will bring lasting fulfillment. The mind is trapped in a cycle of seeking, believing that the next achievement, the next compliment, the next goal will finally be the one that makes everything feel right. But each time, after the brief high of success fades, the hunger returns, stronger than before. The mind says, maybe I just need more money, more status, more approval. And so the cycle continues, a never-ending chase with no finish line. Breaking free from this illusion requires a radical shift in awareness. It means recognizing that self-worth does not come from the outside. It was never meant to. True confidence, real peace, and deep fulfillment arise from within, from an unshakable knowing that nothing external can add to or take away from one's intrinsic value. The moment a person realizes this, a burden is lifted. They no longer feel the need to prove themselves. They no longer live in fear of judgment or failure. They stop running and start being. This does not mean abandoning goals or rejecting success. It means no longer attaching one's identity to them. A person can still strive for greatness, still build, create, and achieve, but not from a place of lack, not from a desperate need to be seen, loved, or validated. Instead, they move through life with a quiet confidence, knowing that who they are is already enough. The paradox is that the moment they stop seeking validation, they become truly free. They no longer need the world's approval, and in that freedom they find something far greater than anything external could ever offer: inner peace. Life is unpredictable. No matter how much control one tries to exert over circumstances, uncertainty is inevitable. The mind resists this truth because it craves security. It clings to plans, expectations, and outcomes, believing that if everything goes according to plan, happiness will follow. But reality does not conform to the mind's demands. Unexpected challenges arise, people change, plans fall apart, and in those moments the illusion of control is shattered. The more one resists what is, the more suffering grows. It is not the event itself that creates suffering, but the refusal to accept it. Imagine a man who loses his job unexpectedly. His immediate reaction is panic, anger, frustration. He feels betrayed by life, consumed by thoughts of unfairness and fear of the future. His suffering does not come from losing his job alone. It comes from his inner resistance to what has already happened. He fights reality in his mind, replaying the event, wishing it were different, blaming himself or others. But no amount of resistance can undo what is. The moment he surrenders to the reality of the situation, something shifts. He stops exhausting himself with what if and why me, and instead asks, what now? From that place of surrender, clarity arises. Surrender does not mean giving up. It is not passive acceptance or resignation. It is the willingness to fully allow the present moment to be as it is, without mental resistance. This does not mean one should not take action. It means action is taken from a place of inner peace rather than fear. A person who accepts what is can respond rather than react. They move through life with greater ease because they are no longer at war with reality. A woman experiences heartbreak when the person she deeply loves leaves her. The pain is real, and she allows herself to feel it. But instead of resisting, calling it unfair, blaming herself, or wishing things were different, she surrenders to what is. She understands that love cannot be forced, that life moves in ways the mind cannot always comprehend. In that surrender, healing begins. She lets go, not because she doesn't care, but because she knows holding on to resistance only prolongs suffering. Surrender is power. It allows a person to flow with life rather than against it. It opens doors that resistance keeps closed. When a person stops trying to control every outcome, they become more present, more adaptable, more in tune with the deeper intelligence of life. They stop wasting energy fighting what cannot be changed, and instead direct that energy toward what they can influence. The response, their mind step, their next step. Life is not something to control, it is something to experience. The more one fights reality, the more they suffer. The more they accept, the more they find peace. The paradox is that true control is only found when one stops trying to control. When resistance is released, life begins to unfold in ways the mind could never have planned. The mind is a relentless storyteller. It creates narratives about who you are, what you should fear, and what you must do to be worthy. It clings to the past, worries about the future, and fills the present with endless noise. It tells you that you are not enough, that you need to be more, achieve more, prove yourself. It convinces you that you are your thoughts, that the voice inside your head is the real you. But what if that is not true? What if who you are is something far deeper than the constant stream of thoughts running through your mind? From the moment a person wakes up, the mind starts its endless chatter. It analyzes, judges, compares, and replays past mistakes. It imagines worst-case scenarios, seeks approval, and constantly looks for problems to solve. And yet, none of this is real. It is simply the mind's conditioning. If a person is not aware of this, they become trapped in it. They react to every thought as if it is the absolute truth. If the mind says you're not good enough, they believe it. If it says you will fail, they accept it as fact. Without awareness, they live inside the prison of their own thoughts, mistaking them for reality. Imagine someone who has spent years believing they are unworthy of success. Every time they try to take a step forward, the mind floods them with doubt. You are not smart enough. You are not talented enough. Others are better than you. If they are unconscious to this process, they will hesitate, self-sabotage, or give up before they even begin. But if they observe these thoughts rather than identify with them, something shifts. They recognize that the mind is simply repeating old fears, patterns formed long ago. They see that these thoughts are not who they are, but just mental noise. And the moment they see this, they create space, a space between thought and reaction, a space where they can choose. A woman struggles with anxiety. Her mind constantly races, warning her of everything that could go wrong. Without awareness, she believes these fears. She feels trapped, powerless, controlled by the overwhelming noise in her head. But one day, she becomes still. She simply watches her thoughts without engaging with them. She notices how they arise and fade, how they lose power when she does not react. In that moment, she realizes something profound. She is not her thoughts. She is the one witnessing them. And in that realization, she feels peace for the first time. The mind will always create thoughts, but awareness changes the relationship with them. Instead of being dragged by every fear, doubt, or worry, there is an ability to step back and observe. Thoughts are like clouds passing through the sky, temporary, ever-changing, but the sky itself, the awareness beneath it all, remains untouched. That awareness is who you truly are. When you stop identifying with the mind's illusions, you step into a freedom beyond anything the mind could ever offer. In a world that glorifies constant movement, endless productivity, and the pursuit of more, stillness is often overlooked, even feared. People fill their lives with distractions, tasks, conversations, entertainment, ambitions, rarely allowing themselves a moment of true quiet. But beneath all the noise, beyond the constant stream of thoughts, there is something deeper, a space within that does not seek, does not struggle, does not fear. It is the place where real power resides, not the fleeting power of external success or control, but the unshakable power of presence. A man spends years chasing achievement. He believes that once he reaches a certain level, earns a specific amount of money, gains recognition, secures the admiration of others, he will finally feel at peace. He moves at full speed, always striving, always thinking ahead, never resting, and then one day he stops. Not by choice, but because life forces him to. Perhaps he experiences burnout, loss, or an unexpected crisis. For the first time, he has no choice but to sit with himself, and in that stillness, something unexpected happens. He notices a quietness beneath the anxiety, a peace that does not depend on achievement. It was always there, but he had been too busy to see it. Stillness is not passive. It is not the absence of action, but the presence of deep awareness. In stillness, the mind's illusions become clear. The fears that once seemed overwhelming lose their grip. The endless chase for validation suddenly feels unnecessary. In that silence, truth emerges, not the truth created by the mind's conditioning, but the truth that has always existed beneath it. The truth that nothing outside can complete what is already whole. A woman overwhelmed by life's demands constantly seeks distractions, scrolling through her phone, filling her schedule, drowning in noise. One day she makes a simple yet radical decision to sit in silence. No distractions, no running, just being. At first, the mind resists. Restlessness arises, thoughts flood in, trying to pull her back into the familiar chaos. But she stays, and then slowly the noise begins to fade. For the first time she feels what it means to just exist without needing to prove, achieve, or escape. She touches something profound, an inner stillness that is more powerful than anything the external world could ever offer. The world teaches that strength is found in force, in pushing, in striving, but the greatest strength lies in stillness. It is in stillness that clarity is found. that fear dissolves, that true wisdom arises. The mind will always tell a person that they must do more, chase more, fix more, but when they dare to be still, they see the truth. They are already enough. They always have been. The search was never necessary. In stillness, life is no longer something to be controlled. It is something to be experienced. And in that experience, there is freedom. Pain is an unavoidable part of life. No one escapes it. It comes in different forms: loss, failure, rejection, disappointment, uncertainty. It arrives unexpectedly, often when least prepared. The natural instinct is to resist, to run, to numb the discomfort in any way possible. But pain is not the enemy. It is a messenger, a doorway, a portal to something greater. The very thing that is feared and avoided is often the thing that holds the deepest transformation. A man experiences a devastating loss. Someone he loves deeply is gone, and the weight of grief feels unbearable. He wants to escape it, distract himself, drown it out with work, with entertainment, with anything that keeps him from facing the raw ache inside. But no matter how much he runs, the pain lingers, pressing against him, waiting to be acknowledged. One day, exhausted from avoiding it, he stops resisting. He sits with his grief, allows himself to fully feel it, without judgment, without trying to change it. And something remarkable happens. The pain, once overwhelming, begins to soften. It does not disappear, but it transforms. It reveals something deeper, a love so vast, so real, that it could only be felt through this depth of sorrow. The pain becomes a doorway to a love that never truly leaves. People fear pain because they believe it will break them. But pain does not destroy, it reveals. It strips away illusions, the false identities, the things that never truly mattered. It brings a person face to face with their deepest fears, but in doing so, it also shows them their strength. A woman who has been betrayed feels shattered, as if everything she trusted has been taken from her. She is angry, lost, unable to see beyond the hurt. But as she sits with her pain, as she allows herself to move through it rather than around it, she begins to see what the pain is teaching her. It forces her to look inward, to discover a strength she never knew she had, to recognize that her worth was never dependent on anyone else's loyalty. The pain, instead of breaking her, awakens her. There is a choice in suffering, to let it harden the heart, making one bitter and closed, or to let it open something deeper. The greatest transformations do not come from moments of ease, but from the moments when everything seems to fall apart. It is in those moments that a person has the opportunity to break open, to step beyond their old self, to see the world and themselves with new eyes. Pain is not a punishment, it is an invitation to feel, to grow, to awaken, to let go of what no longer serves and step into something greater. When pain is embraced instead of resisted, it loses its power to control. It no longer becomes something to fear, but something to learn from. And in that learning, freedom is found. Fear controls more lives than any external force ever could. It disguises itself in logic, in caution, in the illusion of safety. It whispers doubts, plants hesitation, convinces a person to stay within the confines of what is known. It tells stories of failure before action is even taken. It keeps dreams small, choices predictable, and life confined to a narrow path of comfort. But fear is not reality. It is a projection of the mind, a pattern learned over time, a force that only has power if it is believed. A man has spent years longing to start something new, a business, a creative pursuit, a bold change, but every time he considers stepping forward, fear arises. What if I fail? What if people judge me? What if I am not good enough? And so he stays where he is. The discomfort of staying is growing, yet the fear of stepping into the unknown feels greater. But one day he questions it. He looks at his fear instead of immediately obeying it. He asks, is this fear protecting me or is it limiting me? For the first time he realizes fear is not a stop sign, it is an opportunity, a signal that he is standing at the edge of something meaningful. Fear does not disappear by avoidance. In fact, the more it is avoided, the stronger it becomes. Every time a person chooses comfort over courage, fear grows. It tightens its grip, making the unknown seem even more threatening. But when fear is faced directly, when a person moves forward despite it, something shifts. The fear loses its power. It begins to shrink. Action weakens fear in a way that thinking never can. A woman terrified of speaking in public spends years avoiding opportunities. But one day she decides to face it. She steps onto a stage, her hands shaking, her voice uncertain, yet she does it. And in doing so, she realizes something profound. Fear was never the problem. Her belief in its power was. Fear and growth are always linked. Anything that expands a person's life, that pushes them beyond their current self, will bring fear. It is a sign of transformation, not a warning of danger. The mind tries to label fear as a reason to stop, but it is often the clearest sign that something meaningful is on the other side. Fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of the unknown, these are not barriers, but doorways. Courage is not the absence of fear, it is the decision to move forward despite it. Every time a person faces fear, they reclaim their power. They take a step beyond the limitations they once believed in, and with each step, fear weakens. It is not fear itself that holds people back. It is their belief that they must wait until fear is gone before they begin. But fear does not vanish first. Action comes first. And when action is taken, fear no longer leads, it follows. The mind is always waiting for the perfect moment. It convinces you that once the conditions are right, once you have more experience, more money, more confidence, more certainty, then you will begin. It tells you that the right time will come, that someday you will feel fully ready. And so you wait. You wait for fear to subside, for clarity to arrive, for a guarantee that things will work out. But the truth is, the perfect moment never comes. It is an illusion created by the mind to keep you in place, to keep you within the familiar, to postpone action indefinitely. A man has a vision for his life, a dream that has lived inside him for years. Every time he considers taking action, doubt creeps in. What if I fail? What if I'm not ready? What if I look foolish? So he tells himself he will start later, when the timing is better, when he has more skills, when he feels more prepared. But years pass and the hesitation remains. One day he realizes that waiting has not removed the fear. He is in the same place, carrying the same doubts, only now with regret for the time lost. He finally understands that readiness is not a feeling, it is a decision. The moment he takes the first step, everything changes, not because the fear disappears, but because he is no longer controlled by it. The mind craves certainty. It wants to know the outcome before taking action. But life does not work that way. Clarity does not come before action. It comes through action. A woman who dreams of traveling the world keeps waiting until she has more money, until she has the right plan, until she feels completely ready. But one day she realizes there will always be another reason to wait. So she stops waiting. She books the flight, takes the leap, and suddenly she is living the life she once only imagined. The obstacles she feared do not vanish, but she discovers her ability to navigate them. What once seemed impossible now feels natural, simply because she started. Progress is never made in waiting. The conditions will never be perfect, the fear will never fully disappear, and certainty will never arrive before action. Those who achieve, who grow, who transform, are not those who waited until they felt ready. They are the ones who started despite not feeling ready. They understood that hesitation only strengthens fear, that the longer they waited, the more difficult it became. They realized that the only way to become ready was to begin. The perfect moment is an illusion. The mind will always find a reason to delay, to hesitate, to hold back. But life is happening now. The future is not promised, and time does not wait. The only moment that is ever truly available is this one. The only step that matters is the first one, and the only way to move forward is to begin now. Transformation is not something that happens in the future, it happens in the present moment. It does not come from waiting, avoiding, or seeking external validation. It comes from within. The journey of deep inner change begins with awareness, with the courage to face fear, with a willingness to surrender to life instead of resisting it. Pain, uncertainty, and discomfort are not barriers, they are pathways to growth. Stillness reveals truth. Fear loses power when confronted, and action is the only way forward. Life does not wait for the perfect conditions, and neither should you. Every moment spent doubting, hesitating, or postponing is a moment lost. The mind will always create reasons to delay, but transformation is not about erasing fear or finding absolute certainty. It is about stepping forward despite them. It is about realizing that you are not your thoughts, that pain is a teacher, that fear is not an obstacle but a guide, and that stillness holds more power than struggle. True change is not found in external achievements, but in the willingness to see differently, to let go of limiting beliefs, to trust the process of life. The greatest freedom comes not from control, but from surrender. The greatest strength comes not from force, but from presence. And the greatest power comes not from avoiding challenges, but from embracing them fully. You are not here to remain confined by fear, past conditioning, or the illusion of security. You are here to grow, to evolve, to step beyond the self-imposed limits that have kept you small. The time is now. The journey begins, not tomorrow, not when you feel ready, but in this very moment. Everything you seek is already within you. The only question that remains is, will you step forward?